Good morning, friends. In this video, we're going to be looking at what we can do with potatoes. Now, we're going to be using various forms of potatoes, but mostly we're going to be sticking to the regular potato and hash browns. Potatoes are extremely filling, and now that it's the season for them, they are finally getting to be a little bit cheaper. Now in this meal, what I'm making is some split pea potato soup. I was looking for that warm comfort feeling since our weather is starting to change up and it's getting kind of gloomy. And so soup just kind of is food for the soul, right? So here I am showing that I'm using up some carrots, celery, onions and peppers, potatoes, some broth that I made up, salt, pepper, garlic powder, some chicken bouillon, and of course my split peas. I only used a cup of split peas, and I will say that that amount of potatoes was actually quite a lot. It was too much for my recipe. It still tasted great, but it was just a little much. Now here you're gonna see I'm using the fat from the top of my chicken broth to saute my vegetables. That fat is gonna come in and add so much flavor, guys. If you end up using it, you'll see, but if you don't and you end up using butter, it would probably be just as rich. And it's a free byproduct from that chicken broth. Now all we're looking for here is to saute this in our Instant Pot until the onions get translucent. Salt and pepper to taste as always, and if you have any other spices that you wanted to add into here, I just try to keep it as simple as possible because I don't know what other people have on hand. A lot of times I'll use some Montreal steak spice because I feel like that's fairly easy to come across, and it's currently one of our favorite flavors in the household. Now I'm adding in my split peas that I've rinsed off and my potatoes. See, this first amount of potatoes would have been more than enough, but I added in a little bit more because I already had it chopped. I should have just stopped. But that's okay. It still tastes great. It's extremely filling. It supports me for hours after I'm done this meal, and it does lend to the flavor, but it really didn't need to have that much potato as all. Now for this recipe, peppers are a must. I'm not sure I would go with green peppers or jalapeno peppers, but red, yellow, or orange peppers did so well in here. It complemented the peas and it brought that element of freshness that I just wasn't expecting would work so well in here, but it did. And once the soup was nearly ready, I couldn't help myself but whip up a quick batch of emergency biscuits. I have this recipe in my kitchen at all times. It quite literally has never left my kitchen since I've printed it off. If you guys want, I can link the recipe down below, but I've featured it on my videos several times now, so I'm pretty sure you guys are used to them. This night's dinner, I was in the mindset of using as little dishes as possible. I had just finished all my cleaning and could not be bothered to do any more than what this recipe entailed. It was just something that I thought of last minute. I kind of wanted breakfast for dinner, but we had also just gotten a bunch of fresh peppers in through our flash food order, and I really wanted to get using some of those as well, since some of them were already starting to look a little bit older. So I wanted to get those out of the way and leave only the ones that were for fresh eating and ready for fresh consumption in my fridge, and that way I would reduce my waste right off the bat. This ended up being so much better than I thought it ever could be, and it was so quick. It was ready in about 20 minutes or so once the hash browns were done, and it was quite literally a win. This will be on our regular rotation. When I step away with this bowl, I'm actually adding some water to it. I don't know why, but my grandfather always said that it makes the eggs fluffier, and when I'm making eggs, if I'm not adding milk, I will add water. Now for this recipe, you could definitely just keep everything separate, but I had just made the Big Mac hash browns last week, and I kind of wondered what it would taste like if I were to pile everything up and add just a tiny bit of cheese on top. I served this with a tiny dab of mayo, and it was honestly very nice. The cheese kind of came to complete it, and I don't know if you just saw, but my light is flickering right there. I was having some technical difficulties, but thankfully it didn't mess with the video too much. I should have definitely grabbed another utensil to pick up those eggs, but like I said at the beginning, I could not be bothered to add to my dishes since my sink was finally cleared, and I was just trying to make do with what I had at that moment. And as you can clearly see, this meal would have quite easily been stretched out for a whole other person, since I do have leftover eggs and one extra hash brown at the end of this. Now here I'm just chopping up my potatoes in cubes and putting them in that water bowl that's beside, just to keep them from browning while I'm making up my pizza sauce. I didn't have any pizza sauce on hand, so I just made some really quick with some tomato paste that I've had left over in my freezer. Here I am putting some olive oil, some salt and pepper, just keeping my base very simple so that what can shine through are the toppings that we're going to put on top as our pizza toppings. So you could have easily done this with chicken, leftover ground beef. I used up some lunch meat that needed to be used up. But it could have very, very easily been any pizza toppings. I had 2 olives left, and so I split those up across me and my husband. I wasn't sure if we were going to even like the combination of potato, pizza sauce, and olive, but along with the cheese and the spices that were in that tomato sauce, it did come through as very much pizza-like. Me and my husband both agreed that if we want a pizza night and we are not in the mood of dealing with making crust, that we would be making this because we almost always have potatoes in the house. And so this would be a great Friday night meal for a family that's either on the go or looking to stay on budget but feel like you're eating out. Now in my sauce, all I put in was some garlic powder, salt, pepper, that tomato paste, of course, which was about the equivalent of a small can of tomato paste, some Italian spices, and some water to bring it to the consistency that I want. We have a local pizzeria place that does half barbecue sauce and half pizza sauce on their pizzas, and I wonder if it would work out well on these potatoes as well. Since it very much does have the same vibe as actual pizza. So that's something that me and my husband want to try next time. Here's my lonely olive. Had I had more, I would have definitely put more. We normally go for black olives on our pizza, and I feel as though had I had another recipe for black olives within the next few days, I would have definitely opened up a whole can of them. But since I didn't really have anything in mind, I just went along and finished these 2 olives out of our fridge and got a container out. So a little less waste that day. This took a little longer than I was expecting it to take, just because of the potatoes mostly. Not the cooking time. I'm pretty used to my oven and how well they cook up, but I wasn't expecting for my potatoes to need to be carved out so much because of blemishes. But by the time that they were done, this was actually supposed to feed our whole family, me, my husband, and my daughter. But my husband was actually on his way out the door for work, and so he just grabbed the granola bar instead of having a meal with us. So that's why you're seeing me put some aside for his dinner that night, and I ended up just making that portion for me and my daughter, and this was more than enough. This was extremely filling, and it was absolutely delicious. Did not feel like we were on a strict budget at all. This meal was originally supposed to be a teriyaki beef, but when I went to put my sauce together, I realized that I didn't have any soy sauce on hand. I mean, I didn't have any soy sauce on hand. I didn't even have the little packets that come with your Chinese food order left over, nothing. So I dug through the fridge, found that barbecue sauce and that sweet chili sauce, and ended up putting about equal parts. I made up about 2/3 of a cup, once everything was said and done, of sauce, and just used that instead. Now here, as you can see, I had mixed up a small portion of the sauce just to make sure that it wasn't going to be absolutely atrocious and that I was putting it all over my meal that I had already prepared. But it ended up working quite well. And I finally got to say goodbye to this bottle of barbecue sauce that I've had for a little while now. But this sauce I did not want to use too much of because it is my absolute favorite sauce in the world. And I use it for pretty much anything I could use dipping. Now here I'm just putting in my carrots. I feel like carrots take a lot longer to cook, and so I added those in at the same time as my beef. Added in a little bit of olive oil just to make sure that I wasn't going to burn anything because that beef was frozen. No, I did not think of this meal ahead of time. All I did was just put it together as I went and prayed for the best. It worked out. It's probably going to be part of our rotation and for our lazy dinners. But here I am just casually scraping off bits and pieces of it and flipping it over, trying to get an even cook on it. It's not the best way of doing it, but it worked. And I mean, I'm not perfect. I'm a lazy cook, not a preparation cook. And with that, I just mean I'm not always completely prepared, nor do I plan my meals out. I kind of just wing it every single time, because if I try to plan something out, I either lose the list that I've planned or I end up completely wanting none of it, and I lose my interest in it completely. And then I end up wasting time planning meals ahead of time for me not to make them. I do have a running list on my fridge and freezer of meals that we do enjoy, so that if ever I don't know what to make, I kind of just can look at it and go, oh, okay. But other than that, most days my meals consist of just me winging it with the items that I have on hand and trying to make do with what I have. Now once my carrots are soft, my meat is cooked through, and my onions are translucent, I add in my sauce and a little bit of water just to bring it to the consistency that I want. Had I thought of it, I would have kept some of my pasta water, but I just was not thinking ahead, and I was just trying to manage a little and dinner and filming. And so it worked out. I could have always done a little bit of cornstarch water, but really this was fine. It wasn't too thick of a sauce and it stuck to the noodles quite well. So all in all, I'm not mad at it. And that is all for this video, guys. Please don't be shy. Like, subscribe, share this video if you know somebody that could benefit from it, and comment down below whether or not you would try some of these. They're quick, they're simple, they use a handful of ingredients that you probably already have in your house as we speak, and many of these sauces or ingredients are interchangeable with what you could have on hand. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.